morning with folks arriving in style, and none more so than Antonio Brown in a vintage Rolls Royce complete with chauffeur. Why drive when you can ride? And not to be outdone, how about James Harrison, who rolls in via a fire truck? No lights or sirens, but it got the job done. My favorite, though, Panthers rookie Curtis Samuel had his mom drop him off, as you might expect, on the first day of something new. And no word yet on whether Mama Hasselbeck is here, but the boys are back. The Hasselbeck brothers join me for the next 90 minutes on NFL Live. Gentlemen, welcome. Tim, that suits you. That's exactly what I would have chosen.
Look at her ticket. That's what they say.
Right.
It's how we arrive in style.
No longer in the budget.
Why are you getting pushed? I mean, come on.
He's already had
a weight limit for this. Excuse me, I'm parallel parking this bad boy here. I had to back up here.
Please, get it out of the way.
Let's go. There you go. That's pretty good. Hey, I'd like to valet this, please, Aaron. Could you do that?
Yes. And Barbie.
Okay. Yes. I would like to.
Tim Hasselbeck.
Mine
Which one are you? There he is.
I'm one.
There you go. Right there.
Good.
Matt Hasselbeck. I'm Wendy Nix. We are here with you for the next 90 minutes. Well done, except for you. I don't know about the push.
Sure. Did you get driven here by Antonio Brown chauffeur?
I
Is that how you arrived?
Dropped him off and picked me up. It worked out great. You got any arrival stories of note?
You know, my best arrival story was I took a ride from Eli Manning to Albany when training camp was there.
Of course you did. Good choice.
And we stopped while we were there to get some supplies. The toilet paper in the dorms, not so great, and picked up like a big Costco-sized toilet paper thing.
Yeah.
But then I unloaded the car, and so all that was left for Eli to unload was the toilet paper. So then by the time he was unloading the toilet paper, all the media came over, and there's Eli walking with a big 24-pack of toilet paper into the dorm.
Thank you, Tim Hasselbeck.
Yes.
Luckily.
Typical Tim, taking one for the team.
I mean, just trying to help out.
Listen, camp now in full swing just about everywhere. We got you covered today. The Patriots, Steelers, Giants, and Texans, all places we will check in. We have live reports from each of those. But we start with the New York Giants, and there's no sense in beating around the bush. It turns out that Odell Beckham Jr. isn't interested in becoming the league's highest paid receiver. Nope. He would prefer to be the NFL's highest paid player. Here's what he said to Uninterrupted on Thursday.
It's like the elephant in the room, and you don't want to talk about it. And I've gotten to the point in my life where there's no need to not talk about it. I believe that I will be, hopefully not just the highest paid receiver in the league, but the highest paid, period.
OBJ has his sights set on big money, but consider this, the top 14 currently highest paid NFL players in terms of average annual cash value are all quarterbacks, with Derek Carr topping that list at $25 million. The highest paid wideout is the aforementioned Antonio Brown at $17 million. He ranks 22nd among all players. Beckham Jr. currently ranks 539th at $2.6 million. So clearly, I think it's fair to say he does deserve a raise. But do you believe he'll be the highest paid player in the league, Tim?
No, I don't think he'll ever be the highest paid player in the league. We just talked about the quarterbacks. They will always be. They touch the football about 60 times a game. Odell Beckham, on average, is touching the football about 6 times per game. That's not to say that he's not great, but the reality is that he may have a chance to become the highest paid wide receiver at some point. And if it times up right, that'll be the case. But he'll never be the highest paid player in the NFL.
And that's simply just not how contracts are done in the NFL. It's much like selling a house. The real estate market. It's all about comparables. And so, oftentimes they talk about people, not numbers. Okay, you want this guy's contract or that guy's contract. We're going to fit you in somewhere in the middle. So they compare quarterbacks to quarterbacks. They compare receivers to receivers, running backs to running backs. And sometimes you see guys say, hey, I don't want to be compared to just running backs like Le'Veon Bell. Hey, I want to be compared to running backs and wide receivers. And teams are like, no, nice try, but that's not how it works.
Well, listen, contracts aside, and let's not talk players, let's talk position. Is he, Odell Beckham Jr., the top receiver in the game right now?
I believe he's in the discussion, but I don't believe he's the best receiver in the game. I believe Antonio Brown is the best wide receiver in the game right now. And listen, it's not to say that Odell Beckham Jr. isn't great. He is absolutely great. I think there are parts of his game that could be more consistent, and I think that's where he can probably improve. He's one of the best, in my estimation, not the best.
He's a great player. I'm going to go with Julio Jones, though. I think Julio Jones is a game changer. I think he's the best player. If you had to pick one guy as the best, but again, it's like do you like a Lamborghini or a Ferrari? I mean,
do you like a Ken car or a Barbie car?
Barbie car. How about you like the one that actually turns on?
Thank you. Exactly, the ones that works.
Barbie.
It's overrated.
All right, we continue now. That was the Giants. The Steelers also in camp. They reported yesterday held their first practice this afternoon. Not a huge surprise, but Le'Veon Bell, a no-show at camp when players were due to check in yesterday. Again, not present today when the team took the field for their first practice. Bell has yet to sign his $12 million franchise tender, and as a result, he is not subject to fines for his no-show.
Obviously, I would like him to be here. He is not, but I'm going to focus my energies on the guys that are. It's an unfortunate circumstance, one that we'll deal with, one that he'll deal with. I've had good, clean communication with him. I'll leave the nature of that conversations between us, but rest assured that he'll be ready to play football. When he gets here, I do not know. I'll remain focused on the guys that are here and their overall development, and when he gets here, he gets here.
You know, I think the biggest thing with the football, and no matter who you are, this thing moves on without you, and it's a kind of unfortunate truth, but it is the way it is, so he's not here, we just got to go.
Is every day, every rep, every practice.
It's important, yeah, especially right now training. OTAs is one thing, but now it's when it gets serious.
Jeremy Fowler joins us from Steelers camp in Latrobe, Pennsylvania. And Jeremy, of course, the two sides not able to reach an agreement before the deadline. What are the expectations now?
Well, Wendy, the Steelers regroup, formulate a plan, and just start to move on without Le'Veon Bell, hoping he comes back to them sooner than later. Now, Coach Mike Tomlin applied a little bit of pressure yesterday, saying that there could be some untold consequences, but they can't do much to Bell. They can't fine him. Maybe he could have to knock off some rust when he gets back. But I spoke with a few players privately, Wendy, and they understand the business side of things. They're thinking they're going to see Bell in mid to late August, just in time for that Indianapolis Colts game, third preseason game on August 26th. And Bell himself, he hasn't even been in Pittsburgh. He's been 1,500 miles away training in South Florida. I'm told he's eventually going to come back to Pittsburgh here soon, but that doesn't mean that he has to report. He looks ready to slow play this thing.
To be continued. Jeremy, thank you. We go now to Odell Beckham Jr., who has just stepped to the podium.
Well, it was 3 days, when we filmed it. We were in LA training, and it's just kind of goals and aspirations that I have. And Uninterrupted is a company that I am a partner with that allows you to speak your mind, and it's called Uninterrupted because there's 2 minutes and 30 seconds of that video where it's going straight, and there's a lot more information than the one piece that you took out, and that's why I really use the company Uninterrupted and why I'm happy to be a partner with it. So really, any questions you have on that, you can go watch it on Uninterrupted or Twitter, wherever you want to find it. Just make sure you find it. Other than that, it's really just something on my mind. There's a lot of other things and goals that you have that you want to accomplish, but that's just one of them.
Do you think it's a realistic goal?
It's not really up to me.
Odell, how did it feel to be back on the field today, with the new group?
It felt great. It was a little humid, but it wasn't too hot. It was a nice day, nice easy day just to get back in the swing of things. I'm looking forward to this season.
Odell, there was a lot of talk this summer, obviously, with all the NBA contracts that going out. When you talk about stuff like that, do you think about just yourself, or do you see yourself
everybody
making an impact for every player?
That's what you want to do. Is you want to change the game. This isn't for me. This isn't for Odell Beckham. This is for everybody in the league, people who deserve it. You sit there and you watch the people in the NBA, and it's crazy. I mean, being realistic, it's crazy what they're getting. And there's people in the NFL who deserve that. And I just want to be, if I can, be one of the forefront for it and help push the league, the game that way, because I feel like the players deserve it. I feel like, we go through a lot. We put ourselves through a lot, mentally, physically, emotionally. And they just deserve it. The players in the league deserve it. They work hard for it. So it's not for me. This is not for me.
When you say deserve it, you're talking about those amounts? I mean, I was talking to Richard Sherman, and he said that he wants to have player pay looked at in the NFL on the next CBA. So are you talking about similar to the NBA, that there should be kind of like a positionless structure where you can get a max deal regardless of what position you play?
I don't really know much about that. Like I said.
When you're saying you're fighting for the players, what is it that you're fighting for specifically with regards to pay?
It's kind of, I talked to Sherman about it, and it's just like I said, I feel like the players in the NFL who are doing the things that they're doing should be paid more. It's just that simple. Other than that, I really don't have too many comments on contracts. I can't control that. Again, it was just a statement that was made on Uninterrupted. So if you want to check it, go to Uninterrupted. You can find it over there. It's nice.
Odell, when you were about to talk contract, like when you're filming that video, do you think to yourself, this might not be the right time, like we're going into camp?
I don't really.
To be an issue, or
don't really. It doesn't bother me at all.
Because you know how much of a lightning rod you are, how big of a player you are, how big of a star you are, and that is an
how
issue if
big
you
of a
say
story
that.
it's going to be if I say something. That's
You're a star.
Right.
So, I mean, does that go through your mind, like maybe I shouldn't bring this up because it'll be a distraction to like everything else going on?
I mean, everything's a distraction that I do. So, speaking, it doesn't really matter. Anything that goes on is going to be a distraction. So, me speaking my mind about a question that was asked through a company that I work with, it's a different story. And again, other than that, this is my 4th year in the league. I don't really know about contracts. I don't know how they're done. I don't know anything about that. That's up to Mr. Reese, Mr. Mara, the Giants, my agent. So they all figure that out. I just come out here, stretch, run routes, play football, try and be the best teammate I could be every day. And that's really all I have to say about it.
You went up to John.
That was Odell Beckham Jr. speaking to the media for the first time since he said on Thursday to Uninterrupted that he would prefer to be the highest paid player in the league, not simply the highest paid receiver. He was just asked there in New York if this was a distraction. Is it?
No, I don't think it's a distraction other than he's obviously going to get asked about it. I think it's bad timing in the sense that he's got 2 years left on his contract for all intents and purposes because of the 5th-year option. I think kind of my takeaway from this, and I think it's probably important for people who maybe read the headline of what he said, is he seems to know very little about how the process works, how it will eventually work for him. And it kind of gives you a little bit of a glimpse into why somebody would say something that, quite honestly, it's uninformed.
Yeah, and he just hasn't been through it yet. I don't know that I would have known in my first 3 years, going into my 4th year, exactly how all the contract stuff works because I hadn't been through it. Here's a guy that was drafted in the 1st round. He's just hasn't been through it. And it was kind of a throwaway comment, it seems like, in a longer piece that we've made such a big deal of. But I think when you are a star like he is, you probably need to realize the power of your words and the power of how you carry yourself and the impact that it has on your team. Now every single New York Giants player today, instead of talking about something about football, they're going to be talking about, well, Odell thinks players should be paid more and, that kind of stuff. But I think he'll grow, he'll learn. He's obviously got a great relationship with his agent, and he trusts his agent to just, hey, you got that, and I just got football.
Yeah, well, that's true, and certainly it's time for football with Camps reporting. And speaking of time for football, John Lynch has sent this out via Twitter. He indicated that he did hope to get something done today, and in fact, he has. Solomon Thomas has signed, and there's the picture to prove it. And with that, we'll welcome in our insider, Adam Schefter, now with, again, news from several teams that are reporting to camp today. And we'll start with the Rams and defensive tackle Aaron Donald. Shefty, officially a training camp holdout?
Wendy, as of this very moment, the Rams are waiting to see whether or not Aaron Donald reports to the team today with the rest of the players. There's still uncertainty in the organization. I think there's a real sense a holdout is definitely possible here right now for Aaron Donald, one of the best defensive players in the entire game. And if the Rams don't have him, that would not be the way that Wade Phillips and Sean McVay want to start their regimes in L.A. with the Rams, but it could be that way. In Tennessee, Marcus Mariota has reported to camp. He is coming off the fractured fibula. His weight is down to 218 pounds, despite the fact that Titans coaches wanted him to be closer to 225, 230. He believes he'll be quicker. Obviously, that injury last year factored into his decision to lose some weight, but Mariota, surrounded by Eric Decker and unsigned first-round draft pick Corey Davis, looks primed to have another good year for the Tennessee Titans. As for the Oakland Raiders and their first-round draft pick Garyon Conley, he remains unsigned, but it's not difficult to get that deal done. The Raiders are waiting to sign him. They're waiting clarity from the legal situation that surrounded Garyon Conley before the draft into the accusations of sexual assault. Again, there's not been a decision made as of yet about whether or not he'll be charged or arrested. The Raiders are waiting, but they do think, and they are optimistic, that he will be available, that he will be absolved eventually, and that Gary Conley will be joining the Raiders as they go to training camp. And, of course, a couple of other moves to point out to you today, Wendy. The Seattle Seahawks today signed former Eagles first-round draft pick Marcus Smith. Now they can match Marcus Smith with another failed first-round draft pick from the Miami Dolphins, Deion Jordan, who they also signed. So 2 former first-round draft picks looking to make an impact in Seattle.
Adam Schefter, thank you. And speaking of the Raiders, they've traded in the gridiron for the hardcore. ESPN's Sammy Alapur caught up with members of the Silver and Black to talk about the upcoming season. And later, botched kicks, showboating gone wrong, and, of course, the ultimate butt fumble. We take a look at some of the most embarrassing moments from the NFL. And still to come, Jim Trotter visited Jerry's World for an all-access look into the life of Jerry Jones. NFL Live continues after this.
You don't all the time find cooking talent. But when it's hot, burn the roof of their mouth with it. When it's supposed to be cold, burn the roof of their mouth like hot ice.
Part of a new season, the defending champs on the field for the second straight day. And as you might imagine, true Belichick form, they are on to 2017. Mike Reese joins us from Foxborough, day 2 of training camp. And could it be Bill Belichick's patience already wearing thin, Mike?
That's right, Wendy. 10 minutes into his morning news conference, Belichick was asked how an undrafted player had looked in the first practice of training camp. And to Belichick, this was the media's version of the false start. Way too early to jump ahead and ask that type of question. He said the real evaluations start when full pads come on, and that doesn't happen until Saturday. His answer was filled with sarcasm.
You guys are asking a lot of questions about what have we seen from this guy, what have we seen from that guy. We've yet to put on pads, all right? So understand that, there's a pretty talented group of evaluators in this room, but in all honesty, our evaluations come more in training camp when we actually practice and we can fully execute the techniques and the plays that we're trying to do. So I'm not taking anything away from anybody. I'm just saying it is what it is. The competitive level out there is not what it's going to be starting tomorrow. So to evaluate players competitively when they're not on a competitive level, I have a hard time with. But I know a lot of the people are real good at that, and they can make a lot more out of it than I can, so I respect that. But due to my personal limitations and my personal inability to make those evaluations, I don't make them.
Belichick's edge continued on the practice field behind me. I'll take you right out onto the field. And what happened, the Patriots were transitioning from one practice session to another practice session, and Belichick didn't like the pace that players, coaches, and support staff were moving, so he blew his whistle and told everyone to go back to the prior session of practice, let them work a little bit, and then he blew his whistle again, and wouldn't you know, everyone had a little extra hop in their step, Wendy.
I bet they did, Mike Reese. I'm not going to lie, it's my favorite time of year when Bill Belichick is back with that sarcasm of his. Great to see you, Mike. Thank you. And again, of course, we mentioned it, Tom Brady hitting the big 4-0 coming up next week. It'll be Thursday, August 3rd. I mean, look, Matt, you played past 40. I would imagine it is a different deal. I mean, it's an arbitrary number, but it is getting older. And what's he pushing toward at this point?
Well, this guy seems to be getting better as he gets older, and I think it's because of the things that we've read about all offseason, all last year, nutrition, recovery, all the different things that he's doing. He's kind of changing the game. You see other quarterbacks showing up at camp, lighter than they were. Aaron Rodgers, Drew Brees looks like he's, a little more fit. Marcus Mariota's lost some weight. Cam Newton. I think these guys are following Brady's in his steps. But, for me, honestly, it's the stuff you never think about. I was going home after practices when my kids were getting older. I'm all of a sudden helping with, math homework and stuff like that. This is the stuff that Tom's going to be dealing with as well as trying to win the AFC East this year.
Well, no quarterback who began a season at age 40 or older, which he will, has ever started all 16 games, won 10 or more games, or won a Super Bowl. But I have to say, I mean, at this point, Tim, if there's one that can do it, it would appear to be Tom Brady.
It certainly seems so because he doesn't look like the physical skills have diminished at all. And so, Matthew's talking about, how he's taking care of his body between diet and recovery and things of that nature. Also doing things a little bit differently for him, or have probably been doing it for quite some time in terms of resting the arm. And rules have changed in terms of how many times you can practice throughout training camp. And so while guys do that, they're doing a better job of taking care of their arms. And I think what it does, quite honestly, Wendy, it goes back to when you start that process. When I was in the Philadelphia Eagles camp, Donovan McNabb would get rest days. Eli Manning got rest days as early as his third year in the National Football League. Kurt Warner got him in Arizona. I think by resting Brady at times, probably throughout his career, he's had days off of practice before. That helps you. It helps you survive longer.
And the offseason has changed. When Tom Brady started his career, they would go back to work probably like March 2nd. Now these guys go back like maybe end of April sometime. And so you're not working. You have that downtime to recover. Then you get to training camp, like we mentioned, and it's just one throwing session a day. And then if the coach chooses to pluck you out of that for a day to give you some rest, even last year when they knew he had the suspension coming, they gave Jimmy Garoppolo a fair share of some of the workload that Tom Brady otherwise would have had, and he looked better than he's ever looked late in the year last year. So I think that formula has already shown to be pretty successful for them. I expect more of the same this training camp.
There were those who argued that suspension actually served them well in the end because of that.
But one thing to point out to even show how much more impressive it is, New England Patriots usually go far into the playoffs and then the Super Bowl. So he's playing 4 or 5 more games a lot of times than other people are playing.
Let me ask you this quickly. If Tom Brady stays healthy and is able to start all 16 games, is there any reason this team can't be better than it was last year?
No.
I think we fully expect them to be better than they were last year.
Wow. All right. Coming up, Jerry Jones has negotiated plenty of contracts, but what does Michael Irvin have to say with a town in West Texas?
Jerry Jones is going through this whole story about something that happened down in El Paso. It happened in El Paso. He said, well, yeah, this happened down in El Paso.
There. Water for my horses, whiskey for my men, and you know what for me.
We will win. We must win. Winning is what it's all about. A lot of what it was about was the sauce. When it's hot, burn the roof of their mouth with it.
Jerry's a gregarious guy.
Jerry.
The incredible Mr. Jones.
Yeah, I'm going to be emotional here.
It's going to be a special thing.
Touchdown.
You know what? It is Jerry's world. I think we're just living in it. And Jim Trotter got to live in it for how long? How long did you spend with Jerry Jones?
We started 3 days before the draft, and we went all the way up really till training camp. So, with different times, we went back and forth.
Okay, and all access, you were with him, dinner and office?
We got a lot of access. I wouldn't say all access.
Okay, fair enough. What's the most impressive thing you gleaned from that time?
It's hard because that's like asking me cake or ice cream. It's something I can't answer. I will say the fascinating thing to me about Jerry is just what a good storyteller he is. How, I always say he's long-winded, but he's long-winded because he wants to use storytelling to make his point. Go ahead and take a look at this one.
A lot of what it was about was the sauce. I had a guy tell me when I asked him one time, where do you find all of these cooks and chefs for 400 Howard Johnsons that operate 24 hours a day as a restaurant? And he said, Jerry, you don't all the time find cooking talent, but when it's hot, burn the roof of their mouth with it. When it's supposed to be cold, burn the roof of their mouth like hot ice. Intensity covers up a lot of the talent failure.
The most important principle, how you say something can be as important as what you say.
Just the way he talks to you and the way he handles everything around you. That helped me. I'm a dude coming from the ghettos of Fort Lauderdale, and I'm sitting in a big boardroom trying to learn how to do business.
After making the All-Pro team after the 1991 season, Michael Irvin and Jones were negotiating his next contract.
I wanted to become the highest paid receiver. And Jerry Rice was the highest paid at the time.
He had come into the office and he said, I just want to look at you face to face and discuss how far apart we are. I looked at him and I said, Michael, there's an old West Texas town. It's called El Paso.
And Jerry Jones is going through this whole story about something that happened down in El Paso with his family and at this company, and it happened in El Paso. He said, yeah, this happened down in El Paso. Oh, about your offer?
El Paso.
Like, this dude is crazy. But I was laughing. The way he laid no upon me was brilliant.
He's such a colorful guy. Love him, not love him, it doesn't matter. I mean, you can't dispute the fact that he's an original. Did anything surprise you?
You know, Wendy, there were several things, really. One, I didn't know the depth of how important family is to him. And the roots trace all the way back to North Little Rock, where he grew up, you know, and his family owned a grocery store and they lived above it. And he will tell you that many of the lessons, many of the reasons he does the things that he does today and acts the way that he acts and sells the way that he sells is based on lessons he learned at that dinner table listening to his parents who were entrepreneurs owning their own store. And so the theme throughout this whole piece is I go back and I watch him relate to people and I watch him do business deals and all these different things. Goes back to that, how you connect with people and what he learned at that dinner table as a young boy in North Little Rock.
One of the things he does do and has done consistently through his career as the owner of the Cowboys is that whole sliding scale, that risk-reward in terms of questionable character or other things that may take place. We see that a little bit now with Ezekiel Elliott. You know, there's some smoke. We'll see what happens. But what strikes you about that? Do you think he's playing with fire at this point?
I mean, listen, they need to clean it up down there a little bit. But with that being said, I don't think that they're doing anything that other teams aren't doing in terms of allowing players to be who they can afford to be, essentially. I mean, the more talented you are, the more leeway you have, and that's probably the case for all 32 teams. The thing that strikes me quite a bit about him is that he gets so much criticism about Jerry, the GM, but their teams are always loaded with talent. Loaded with talent. To me, that's never really been the issue for them.
The one time that, I'm sorry to cut you off, the one time he took umbrage with me throughout this whole piece was when I brought up the perception that he has taken a backseat in personnel decisions, that he has deferred to his son Stephen and to Will McClay. And Jerry let me know in his own firm way, I still call the shots here. So for all those folks who think he's not involved, he's involved.
I think whenever there's been a player to talk about, like, where could this guy get traded or where would a possible landing spot be for that player, Dallas always comes up. And it's because of Jerry Jones. It's almost like he owns the team the way a normal NFL fan would own a team. Like if a normal NFL fan would be like there were trade rumors this offseason about Richard Sherman. A normal NFL fan would be like, man, we should go get Richard Sherman. I think Jerry Jones owns and runs his team like that. He's sitting around there like, oh, Charles Haley? Let's go get Charles Haley. Oh, wait, Deion Sanders? Let's go get Deion Sanders. Like, he just kind of does it. He just finds a way, and he looks at it way bigger than everybody else. He's like, okay, if I sign that guy, not only am I going to get him on the football field, but I can sell that guy's jersey, and then I can go sell sponsorship, and I can, like, he is a businessman, and he has really been one of the guys that has taken the NFL to the next level in that regard.
And again, it goes back to that lightning rod. It doesn't matter. He has sold this league. I mean, he has been a huge part of that.
Look, no one has had a greater influence on the NFL being what it is today than Jerry Jones. No one. And that's why he's going into the Hall of Fame.
So it's an SC featured piece, Jerry's World, and I believe we'll see it Sunday morning for the first time?
Short version Sunday, the long version the week after.
Is this Jerry's jacket?
Congrats. You live to tell about it. We talked about Aaron Donald earlier in the show. It is official. Adam Schefter has since tweeted Rams players were due at 11 a.m. Pacific time. Of course, we're on the East Coast, so Aaron Donald still has not shown up yet. So that means he's now officially late, and you can assume that the holdout is on. Adam Schefter is back with us now for a bit more. Adam?
Well, Wendy, essentially, as you mentioned, the Rams players were due at 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern. Aaron Donald did not show up at 2:30 Eastern, 11:30 Pacific. The Rams have a conditioning test. They will take that conditioning test without Aaron Donald, who now officially is a holdout from the Los Angeles Rams training camp. Not the way that Sean McVay, the new head coach, and Wade Phillips, the new defensive coordinator, wanted to start their regimes in Los Angeles with the Rams, but that's exactly what they have. And it's interesting because when you look at it, Aaron Donald and Odell Beckham Jr. were a part of the same draft class. They are two of the very best young players in the game at their respective positions. They've had two different strategies with dealing with wanting a new contract. Odell Beckham Jr. reported to camp today. Aaron Donald did not. We'll see how the two strategies unfold this summer, but Aaron Donald officially a holdout.
Adam, thank you. And of course, until they're due and until they're late, it's a bit of a question mark. But now you can assume that the holdout is on. You surprised at all, Tim?
A little bit surprised. You know, as Adam laid that out. A fairly young player. The team has had very little success. While he's proven to be a very good player, the team hasn't been very good. And so I think that has something to do with it. You know, I think the team is less concerned about disruption when, you know, you're not winning very many games. Even when they feel like you can ruin their season, then all of a sudden I think it's a problem.
But Aaron Donald's loved in that building, and people have been talking about him since day one. Like, this is the best player that nobody knows about, Aaron Donald. And he is a game changer. He's a game wrecker. And so he probably knows that. His agent probably knows that. And they feel like they sit in a position of power. Like, hey, I know I am really, really, really good at my job, and I'm going to hold firm in that. And you know, that's in that Wade Phillips defense. You need those guys up front. They set the tone for everything else that happens in that defense.
They're a better team with him on the field. There's no question about that. And Jim Trotter, your work is never done. A good man's work is never done. You also caught up with the phenoms of the pass rush for part 2 of the Pass Rush Summit. Coming up. Candidate in applied mathematics at MIT surprised folks with his retirement at the age of 26 yesterday, just before the first full team practice of training camp. His decision comes just 2 days after a medical study indicated that CTE was found in nearly 99% of deceased NFL players' brains that were donated to scientific research. As we welcome you into the Red Zone, where we tackle some bigger issues that the league is facing. And Dominique Foxworth joins us now, a former player. You also did a great deal of work with the Players Association. And Dominique, I'll start with you because you have said that knowing what you know now, you would change the way you played the game.
Yeah, so, I mean, I don't know that. I was on Izzy and Spain's radio show last night, and the question was, would you still play if you know what you know now? And the answer to that is very easy right now. The answer is yes. Like, obviously I would. The life that my family is allowed to lead going forward because of the money and the relationships that I've built through football is something that I would not trade. However, I have not felt the depths that people like Junior Seau has felt. I don't know what it feels like to want to take your life. So if I ever get to that point, which obviously we all hope that none of us do, if I ever get to that point and I somehow equate any percentage of that to having played football, I imagine then the way that I look at the decision that I made would be different. But as of now, I'm happy with the choices that I've made.
What's interesting is that this study, when it was released, you know, it sort of hit mainstream media. I mean, you saw it everywhere. We weren't CNN and Good Morning America. We weren't just talking about sports outlets. But I will ask you, Jim, we'll start with you because you've watched this closely. Did we learn anything new from that study in particular that we did not know before?
No, not unless your head was buried in the sand. I mean, everyone knows football is a dangerous game, and based on the studies that we have heard, there appears to be a link between concussions or brain trauma and CTE. The thing that I find fascinating is when I talk to players, active players who have children, I say, will you allow your children to play the game? Many of them have told me, yes, they will, but they will hold them out until they're older, meaning either late middle school or high school, as opposed to letting them play contact football early on. And they told me what they'll do is allow them to play flag football instead. So it's interesting how players, in my mind, have reacted to this as well.
Have things changed, Matt, too? I mean, over that time, during the time that study was done, or at least with the brains they studied, we're changing a lot of things. I mean, we're sort of taking it seriously, if you will, after quite a while of
Yeah, so the findings from this BU study are alarming for sure, but I think that there needs to be more done. We need more research, we need more data. Quite honestly, we need more people donating their brains. I've actually pledged to donate my brain upon my death. My father, who played 9 years in the NFL, has done the same. I'm hoping that my brain's one of the good brains. I don't have symptoms. I think I have 3 documented concussions in 18 years, which I think is a very low number. But we just don't know. Harvard's doing the Harvard Players Study right now, the largest study in history. I think it's like 3,500 players, and everybody, healthy guys, hurt guys, you played 1 year, you played 20 years. We don't have enough data. And so the NFL community, the NFLPA, the NFL, they've sort of invited the medical community and said, hey, we'll be open and honest with you what's going on. Help us find out what we need to know about what we can do to make this game safer or better. And I think we're on the right track. It's just taking some time.
Well, there's an implied risk here for sure, but are we doing the right things? Are the steps being taken finally to move forward with this?
Well, one thing I will say is that it seems like there is at least an effort to head in the right direction. So whether it's changing the way the game is played to a certain extent, whether it's development in equipment. I mean, listen, for how long did you play before you actually got a new helmet?
Right. I probably only 3 helmet changes in my 18-year career.
And so, and from the time that my father played to the time that we started playing, those helmets really hadn't changed much. You know, we look at the way that technology evolves. I mean, we should be wearing better equipment.
And like now, as an example, they're talking about position-specific helmets. You know, like an offensive lineman, this is what they do, maybe 100 times a day, and then a wide receiver or DB, maybe they take 10 to 15 hits.
So my point is this. So for a long period of time, there has been very little done to head in the right direction. Now, because of these studies and because we've seen the way we've seen people suffering, we've decided, okay, we need to address this. The NFL realizes they need to address it. And I think what you're seeing is, sure, some people are saying, hey, my kid will never play football and never want anything to do with it. Other people are saying, it's fine. Look at all the healthy guys. Truthfully, it needs to be somewhere in the middle where we say, look, we need to respond to someone getting a concussion differently. They need to be removed and not enter back in the way they used to in the past. We also need to have better equipment, change the way we practice. All of those things together should make the game safer.
Dominic, you referenced the lifestyle that this has afforded you and your family, and obviously there's been a lot of opportunity that have come from this game. So when you hear studies like this and they do garner the headlines that they do so quickly, does it bother you?
No, not at all. I mean, there was for so long the opposite was happening. The NFL was actually found to obscure the information and hide it. So if the pendulum has swung too far in the other direction, I'm not going to lose any sleep over that. Frankly, I think that, and I did play football for much of my life, and I do believe that football is a unique sport. And the things that you can learn in football can't be easily learned in other sports. So I'm indoctrinated into football culture in that way. However, I don't think that value is worth the risk. So like Jim mentioned that players have said that they would still let their sons play. Like I have 1 boy and 2 girls, and I'm not going to let my son play football given the information that I have now because the risk weighed against the reward is not high enough for me. Like he doesn't need to go to the NFL. He's a very smart young man, and he's going to go to really fancy schools. He can do something much more impressive than play in the NFL like I did. And I don't say that when people ask me. One of my coworkers actually last week asked me about should her son play football, and I never tell people how to raise their kids or whether their sons or whoever can or can't play football. I support the decision that they made, but they need to educate themselves. And I think another point in this is you don't really have a decision for some people because some people start playing football when they're kids and they're not qualified to make the decision now. And then you imagine as you continue to go forward and you advance, you get closer and closer to this main goal of NFL success, and then people ask you, like, or say to you, well, you signed up for this, it's okay. That bothers me that people talk about concussions in that way and talk about the player's decision in that way because not everyone's John Urschel. Not everyone can stop playing football. I can't even say not everyone. No one other than John Urschel can stop playing football and go to pursue a mathematics degree at MIT. So it's not as easy a decision as people make it seem.
But I'm curious, if your son comes to you at some point and says, Daddy, I want to play. All my friends are playing. This is what I want to do.
Yeah. So you've called me out on something that I called myself out on this morning on Mike and Mike and on First Take, is that it's easy for me to say now when he's 4. So when he gets older and he finds out that I played professional football and his friends are playing professional football, I mean, I think about the opposite side of that in that the woman that I flew up here next to said that her son got into an Ivy League school because he was good at crew and no other reason. Like he's an okay student, but they needed him to crew, so he got into an Ivy League school. Like that goes through my mind, and that am I limiting my son's opportunity because maybe he's born with some ability to play football? And I say, no, you can't. So all that goes through my mind, and I weigh all that, and I come to the conclusion now, as he's 4, and again, when he's 10, he's 12, he's 15, maybe I will feel differently, and maybe the science will advance. But given the information I have now, my son's not going to play football.
Well, listen, I would say this, like the scenario that you that's our scenario. Like my father played 9 years in the NFL. Our father played 9 years in the NFL. And when he was done playing, or when he was playing, we asked him, we want to play football. And he's like, you're not allowed. You're not allowed to play. Because he was beat up. He thought it was, and finally we wore him down enough that he let us play football.
So get ready. Your kid's going to wear you out.
It's all game. You know?
Listen,
we'll see.
One thing is for sure, I think we are all better for the debate and for the dialogue, and we hope that will continue. Up next, you may need a mountain to keep these guys from your quarterbacks, but how good can they be after they share their own tips with each other? Part 2 of the Pass Rushers Summit on deck.
Pass rushers in the game. Von Miller still has one move he'd love to steal from his counterparts. In part 2 of our Pass Rushers Summit, Von and his fellow sack artists discuss their missing moves and just what it takes to get into a quarterback's head.
There he goes! Von Miller! He's hit and sacked inside the 5. Malik Jackson! Hit from behind, lost the football.
Hit from behind and dropped by Cliff Averill.
Now under pressure, taken down for the sack.
Who's the toughest to bring down?
Aaron Rodgers is tough. Aaron Rodgers is sit there behind the offensive lineman, just sit there. So you actually have to go straight through this 300-pound offensive lineman just to get to Aaron Rodgers. So I think Russell Wilson is tough. He's tough to get to. Alex Smith, and just when you get to him, you got to be able to tackle him and get him on the ground. He's always trying to extend the play.
Cam actually is like getting to him might not be too difficult at times, but bringing him down is hard. You know what I'm saying? He's tough because he bigger than half of us. And obviously, Big Ben. The bigger quarterbacks are always a little harder to bring down. He gonna fight for it too.
He fight for it too.
Yeah.
If you don't bring it down, they're throwing on.
How hard is it to get inside a quarterback's head?
You just got to get to him.
Just hit him.
That's it. Not one of these quarterbacks like getting touched.
No.
So if you consistently hitting them, even if you're not getting sacks, if you consistently hitting them throughout the game, they feel it and that gets to them a little bit.
And when you hear them turn to a ref,
that's the best feeling right there. You know you're doing your job right there.
Smash him in the ground a little bit.
Ref, he can't hit me late like that. Oh, man.
I try to stay out of the ref stuff. So my mom, she always, after every game, she says, Vaughn, why don't you go to the ref? And why are you just letting those guys hold you like that? Why don't you say something to the ref? I'm like, Mama, if I get into that game with the refs and I'm giving the offense power.
I'm telling them, I want the whole.
I'm telling the ref.
They ain't giving it to you, but I'm getting him up. Hey, you get a holding call on the 3rd down or something like that. Hey, move him back.
Hey, that's easy. All right. Love those.
Vaughn, you know about this in particular now, the strip sack. I just wonder, when you guys practice, how much do you think when you're going in on a quarterback, are you thinking strip sack versus just bring him down?
Whenever I get there, that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for the ball each and every time. Whenever I get an opening or whenever I have a lane to the quarterback, it's never take the quarterback out. It's always to the ball because that's bigger than the sack, and especially for defensive guys. When we're out there and we're playing strong defense and we can create turnovers, that helps the offense.
If you guys could steal one move from one of your peers, what would it be? It's easy. Go ahead, D. Tell me.
Spin.
Yeah.
That's easy. You have to trust the spin though. I think Vaughn is pretty much the only one who does it consistently.
I wish I had just crazy strength. Because when the spin doesn't work, when the speed dip doesn't work, when the long arm doesn't work, when all of these moves that you got don't work, you just grab the guy, move him out the way, and get the sack. So I just wish I had crazy, Hulk type strength where I could just stutter and just run straight through a guy and get the sack.
Which pass rushers do you guys study?
All of
them. Everybody here.
Yeah,
whoever the top in the league that year.
I mean, for me, I've been a student of the game since day one. And besides that, I'm a fan as well. Like when I go home and I watch football and I see guys making plays, like I'm a fan. So when I go to work and you see all these big plays, I'm gonna get on my iPad and I'm gonna look exactly how did that play happen. You know, I think when Justin Houston when he had that crazy year, I was on, Justin Houston's tape. I'm still on Justin Houston's tape, from day one. And J.J. Watt. Not everybody can play football like J.J. Watt. So I still watch, his impactful plays. But every single pass rusher in the league that's having some type of success, even the ones that's getting, just pressure. I watch every single pass rusher. Everybody.
Well, that was really fun to watch, and I know the way that pass rushers study quarterbacks is very interesting. Pete Carroll, Dan Quinn, they take pictures of quarterbacks and show it to the defensive guys in the room as you're getting ready to play them. Hey, this is how this guy holds the ball. He's got one hand on the ball. We're going to show you how strip sacks occur. I'll be the defender.
Yeah, well, and the most important thing for a quarterback is the left-hand pressure, keeping two hands on the football. You think about some quarterbacks, whether it's Andrew Luck, Drew Brees, when they climb through pressure, a lot of times they keep two hands on the ball. Now, where a lot of quarterbacks get into trouble is they get to the top of your drop, and if they want to escape outside the pocket, they immediately bring this hand off the ball to escape.
And that allows for the strip sack.
And that's
right
exactly where the chop comes right there. So the number one thing for a quarterback is two hands on the football, climbing through any type of contact.
Left-hand pressure. So I'm going to show you a little trick that I would use, and I didn't try to do it on purpose, but if you have a home game or an away game, you use the crowd noise to for these blindside sacks. And so I'd be like this down here, like looking downfield, and all of a sudden I'd hear the crowd go, and I just kind of squeeze the ball just a little bit harder, like pressure's coming. Or on the flip side, you're on an away game, and the crowd's like, yeah, like they see it coming, you don't, and you don't really move your body at all, but you just squeeze a little bit and just get ready to just take a vicious blow. So that's how the crowd can help you. I'm going to just send it back to our crowd, to Wendy Nix. It's a little tricky.
Hey, Matthew, thank you. So here's a question. Where does Matt Hasselbeck's proclamation rank on the most embarrassing NFL moments? And what about what he said today?
Get out. See you. No, you didn't.
Get out.
No, you didn't.
Get out. What did I say?
In the country, the Giants reported yesterday held their first practice this afternoon. Both Odell Beckham Jr. and Eli Manning spoke today about what else? OBJ's desire to get paid.
Everything's a distraction that I do, so speaking, it doesn't really matter. Anything that goes on is going to be a distraction. So me speaking my mind about a question that was asked through a company that I work with, it's a different story. And again, other than that, this is my fourth year in the league. I don't really know about contracts. I don't know how they're done. I don't know anything about that. That's up to Mr. Reese, Mr. Mara, the Giants, my agent. So they all figure that out. I just come out here, stretch, run routes, play football, trying to be the best teammate I could be every day. I hope Le'Veon gets the highest contract a running back's ever had in the entire history of the NFL. That's just what I wish for him. That's like a brother of mine, like a guy who I respect, and look up to. And it just will start to transcend the game, starting with Le'Veon. So I'm not here to hold out. I'm here to practice. I'm here to get better.
Are you bothered at all by Odell sort of making that public statement about wishing to be the highest paid player, or just receiving player in the NFL?
I didn't see it, but no, it doesn't bother me at all. If you, sounds, could be right.
What do you think of the possibility of that, of a wide receiver being up there in the sort of quarterback ranks of money?
I don't know. I don't get involved in other people's contracts, so. Whenever that comes up, I hope he gets a good one.
Listen, Eli Manning's been around this game long enough, as has his family. He knows how to make a prudent decision when it comes to staying out of that stuff. But let's do circle back to Odell Beckham Jr., because I think what strikes me and what struck the two of you is how uninformed he appears. I mean, in terms of when, he talked more than what you just saw there, and he doesn't seem to have a full grasp on how this really works as a business.
And it doesn't totally surprise me, because a lot of young players, they come in, they get an agent, and their agent handles that area of their life for them. And you pay your agent a fee, and that's what you ask them to do, and they do them. And then the relationship is often very tight. And maybe in your first 3, maybe in your first 4 years, you don't know exactly what that process is like because you haven't been through it. You know exactly what the draft process is like. You know what happens to a first rounder versus what happens to a second rounder. But what I hear also when I hear OBJ talk, and not just him, other guys around the league, they're comparing themselves to basketball players or to baseball players and to contracts that are guaranteed contracts or the contracts that are different. Football is just a very different structure when it comes to a contract. And so this is where you start to see players getting a little bit disgruntled. You talk about the top players in football and how much those guys make, and then you compare it to people in basketball, you're talking about names you've never even heard of. And so that's what I think you're seeing more players talk about.
And the NBA has dominated headlines this offseason with players getting exorbitant amounts of money. And it's just, to your point, though, a different animal in the NFL.
It is, and it's not really changing. I mean, even the biggest stars getting involved in threatening to, like Richard Sherman has to say, hey, listen, we would have to miss, guys would have to be willing to miss game checks and that type of thing. It's really not changing. And the truth is, if as Odell Beckham is talking about, he hopes Le'Veon Bell becomes the highest paid running back. And, he made the comments that he hopes he becomes the highest paid player. That's not going to happen either. Odell Beckham Jr. will not become the highest paid player in the NFL. And so I think that's part of the, lack of awareness in terms of how the process actually worked. And I'm not sure, from listening to him, I'm not sure he realizes potentially how far away he is from getting a new contract. He's got this year on his rookie deal, then a 5th-year option. I mean, he could be a full 2 years away.
It is not tomorrow.
From getting paid.
I was going to say how he could become the highest paid player in the NFL. He's talented enough. He could probably just go play in the NBA. And maybe that's how he could get it done.
That's how he could be the highest paid player in the NFL.
That might be the way that he could get that done.
All right. Well, that's a fair enough. Soccer would do it too. Either one will work.
Champions League.
Coming up, where does this famous Matt Hasselbeck, sorry, buddy, proclamation rank?
Not even in my top 5.
NFL moment.
See you. No, you didn't.
Get out.
No, you didn't.
Get out. What'd I say?
Lucky Whitehead is getting another shot in the league after an unceremonious end to his run with the Cowboys. The Jets claimed the wide receiver off waivers on Wednesday. This was after he was released by the Cowboys when he was misidentified by police in connection with a shoplifting arrest. In general, a bit of an embarrassing moment for the police and for the Cowboys. So it got us thinking, top 10 most embarrassing NFL moments. Remember this?
Ooh.
Lions, Vikings, Dan Orlovsky.
I've seen this happen several times. It's okay.
It's all right.
I've seen
it's
it happen
safety
before.
because...
It's an easy Jared Allen sack.
Deshaun Jackson, Redskins, Cowboys returns the punt, but goes all the way back to try and find his gap and then ends up, I'm pretty sure, coughing up the football.
This was a great run, though.
Yeah.
This was really a great run. And a Monday Night Football game?
I'd say that's not really, I mean, that's not all that embarrassing.
Oh, this is not the wrong, he got it twice?
Yeah. I mean, it's not great.
It's all right. Really good.
Number 8, 49ers and Bears, Week 13. Dante Johnson returns the blocked punt, thinks he's in for the touchdown. Even, this is the problem, gets an excessive celebration flag, but he wasn't because he'd stepped out of bounds anyway.
Out of bounds.
So
I don't like the excessive celebration penalty.
If you know that it's not a touchdown,
like a fine line.
That seems like a bit much. Right, Peyton Manning here. Oh,
God noise. Not a good way to start. God noise
that
will
was
kill
the
you.
Super Bowl, which makes the list. Yeah.
Not a neutral site.
Number 6, Steelers and Ravens. Chris Boswell attempting the onside kick, tries to go backwards and then just about misses the ball.
In his frustration,
that's not good.
I've seen him pull that off, I think, in college. So, I mean,
the best is the ref's reaction. He just doesn't really know.
By the way, the degree of difficulty, the ref is pretty amused.
Yeah, he can't. Oh, I'm sorry, Matt. Here we go.
What do you call?
I like to call heads.
Heads is called. Heads! Seattle has won the toss.
We want the ball, we're going to score.
I've never seen that before.
Yeah, really? We pulled that out of the archives.
I blame John Randall.
Al Harris. How about
I blame Al Harris.
Oh, at least make the tackle.
Yeah, you know what happens. Griff Whalen, you were there.
Griff Whalen.
Oh, you were there for this, too.
You were there for this. False motion offsides, fake punt attempt, but it goes completely wrong. What happened?
That's Stanford. That was a Stanford graduate right there.
He must have looked over to you to the sideline. Did you give him a signal?
Jim Marshall. This is 1964. 49ers and Vikings recovers and runs 60 yards, but He runs the wrong way.
Even Hall of Fame.
Get you.
It's in a muddy field, hard to tell which direction you're going.
You typically need to go in the right direction.
Wow.
So.
Good point. Even Hall of Fame.
I've shot on the wrong hoop, actually, in a basketball game,
Well,
so I can't throw rocks.
Okay, don't. Glass houses. Leon Lett here recovers the ball after the sack, nearly in for the touchdown, but still, we see this. You know, he's celebrating too early.
Right way.
Yeah, he was, but he didn't run all the way before he celebrated.
Turn around and get your buddy a block. You know what I mean?
Charlie Hustle. Look at me.
Charlie Hustle, Don Beebe.
How furious would that make a coach? That must send them.
Well, not too furious when you win.
Yeah, I think they did okay.
All right, I still make me mad. Mark Sanchez, the butt fumble.
I mean,
this is going to be on every list all the time.
How does this live? How does it live? Like, listen.
This is what it is. It's not going anywhere. And
I've done far worse than that.
No, you really have. I mean, yours was bad, but yours was...
It's always going to be number one.
Okay.
Listen, this is number one in my heart, though, this morning. Mike and Mike, a little math exercise.
Like I said,
yeah, listen, if you missed it, here we go.
Did you guys do flashcards going through your school?
We sure did.
Yeah,
we sure did.
Definitely flashcards.
I always felt like I was good at the sevens because I was always playing like touch football in the front yard.
That's good to know. 7 times 4.
7 times 4, 36.
7 times 6.
Wait, get out. Get out.
Out. See you. No, you didn't.
Get out.
No, you didn't.
Get out. What'd I say?
You said 36 on 7 times 4.
What? It's indivisible by 7.
Way to go.
It doesn't make any sense.
No, you're right.
Like,
None.
The worst part is he has a son going into 6th grade. Good luck, Henry. Good luck, bud. Not help Mom for help.
Not helping with homework anymore, are you?
It's live. It's live.
Sadly for you, it is.
What I love about that is the assurance. He doesn't hesitate. He's not
36.
He's like 36. I got
it was
this.
early in the
36.
morning,
No, there's no excuse.
night,
All right,
early morning.
Listen, we're gonna give you a chance to redeem yourself. Look at this,
Totally.
mathematics.
Totally.
See what we did there?
Okay, here we go.
All right,
Let's help you out. Here we go.
Tim's got the question.
Here we go. Chance to redeem yourself. 7 times 4.
Not 36.
No.
28.
Nicely done.
28?
Well,
you are
Degree
correct.
of
You
difficulty
are correct. Very good.
increases. Go ahead,
Okay,
Scott.
to 36 points using football scoring. Give me an example of how you get to 36 points.
You could score 4 touchdowns, another touchdown, and a two-point conversion.
There you go.
All right.
What did you count a touchdown to 6 or 7? That's right.
Yes, got it. That's got it. Okay. All right, here we go.
Yeah, step
All right,
off.
since you're so good at touchdowns, okay. So consider the extra point made. Okay.
What is this? Is this times? It's like 2 touchdowns?
Yeah, 2 touchdowns plus a safety.
21. Oh, that's a safety. I'm
plus
sorry.
a safety. Whoa.
First of all, he's got. Now we have another
2
problem.
touchdowns plus a safety
That's
plus a
16
field goal.
Oh, that's 19 points. Sorry.
Yes,
Thank you.
nice.
19 points.
Nice.
Way to go.
All right.
Way to talk yourself through it.
Yep.
Okay.
Listen, sound it out.
28 to 3.
Sound it out.
That is going to be a comeback victory for the Patriots.
Very good.
And then 283.
How many points did they come back? 25. There you go.
Yeah,
Hey,
there you go.
well done.
I thought that was a
Okay.
trick question.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Wow.
What's this one?
This one's
Say
tough.
double digits.
Ooh, double,
Wendy doesn't want
that's
anything to do with
no,
this
I
one.
got
This would be my number and your old number, 84. Yes, thank you.
Nicely done.
Am I right?
84.
Nice.
That's
Yeah,
well done.
that's correct.
That's well
Shout out
done.
to AJ.
Okay. All right, let's see. Okay. Julio Jones plus
these are the
J.J.
numbers.
Watt's number.
I didn't get this one right.
Let's go.
Shoot.
You didn't get this one right?
No, I didn't. I'm not going to lie.
Really?
I can't
I
think
was
of
off
the
by
number,
one
though.
number.
You can't think of the number?
That's the
I
problem.
mean, he's only one of the 3
I think
best
it's 110,
receivers.
but I'm not actually sure. Is he number 11? Yes, okay.
110. That's
Consider
really well
yourself
done.
When I've seen J.J. Watt, usually I've been like this way, and
No numbers on this one. Please don't get distracted by the
It's hard to
receding
know what
hairlines.
number Tim was on every team that he
Fair
was
enough.
on, though.
No, but didn't we go with the
Jersey,
Giants?
This is going to be
Blue jersey, though.
This is going to be 8 times 8, which is not 36. It's 64. Thank you.
Boom. Ladies and gentlemen.
Totally redeemed yourself.
You're right. It was
Totally
early.
redeemed yourself.
We can give credit where it's
Hey,
due.
congratulations,
occasionally.
by the way. Way to go back. Way
I work better after
Way to go.
lunch.
Way to
Okay,
go.
fair enough.
Wendy, you're up next segment.
Okay, good. I'm ready. Coming up, we take a look at the week that was on NFL Live. Ryan showed off his basketball skills, but not without a little help.
Zero. Negative.
And John Elway does not have a nipple ring.
Out there. Training camp heating up, so Drew Brees brought a snow cone machine to camp today,
solid
which I'm
move.
sure it is a solid move,
That's
and I have no
leadership.
doubt was much appreciated. In addition, Adrian Peterson spoke today. Here's what he had to say.
Yeah, a little bit. You know, just to kind of get back and see some familiar faces. Play in front of fans that played in front of for 10 years. You know, that'll be pretty outstanding. My wife sent me a link yesterday or 2 days ago and was showing my jersey sales and the New Orleans Saints jersey. This is the leading jersey sale in Minnesota. So it'll be good to get back out in front of them.
During camp, for lack of better terms, like on a pitch count or anything like that, like in terms of reps, just to make sure that your body stays preserved?
Not really. You know, I don't know if you guys see me at the running today. You know, I'm trying to beat everybody. You know, young guys, senior, guys have been in the league 2 years, and I'm still holding my own.
Glad you could be with us here for NFL Live.
That's how we roll, you know what I'm saying?
Give it a shot.
I just want to know.
You figured out how to play this game yet?
Am I guessing for both?
No, just you. How many rushing yards do you think you get behind that offensive line?
Not a whole
lot.
4? 0. Negative.
Well, what I'm saying?
Oh, okay.
Right?
You can erase that.
He hasn't shown you enough? I mean, if you're going to say what you said about Andy Dalton, Joe Flacco hasn't shown you enough.
How you question me when I'm trying to tell
asking you.
I was about to have to crush your semen.
I know. We're going to do that later.
Tim, I got the ball up high. Reach you all the way down low.
He didn't put it on the Twitter.
I understand
on
that.
The Twitter.
Well, can he get his Rob Kardashian on? Maybe that's his way for being.
Is Marcus on the Twitter?
And John Elway does not have a nipple ring.
Don't press send. I'm just saying. Send it to your mama.
You can keep looking under the table, Brian, but I understand. Excuse you.
I'm going to play it really safe here.
That is
and go with
so
the $1.
Oh, we got the toys out, though. You guys going to play nice.
We got no gas.
Please. Come on now.
The car.
Oh, my God.
I could have started at North Carolina.
I'm trying to get my Seahawks.
Oh, your Seahawks. You weren't on the Colts during 2000.
You always talk about all the banners you have.
Yes.
Or would you like to grab the basketball?
All right.
Are you a dunk?
Oh, the basket's over here.
Look at this. How terrible do you have to be?
There we go.
Pull up the dress.
And this is why we don't play basketball, man. This is why.
Once again, another boring week here at NFL Live.
Where's your basketball game, by the way?
Not bad. Better than
your highlights.
Better than what? Ooh,
I know. You know what? I'm not even going to go there. I'm going to let it
than...
go. Listen, I'm going to give you some real news. How about this, okay? Let's digress. Adam Schefter has just tweeted that despite what Jerry Jones had to say, a decision on Ezekiel Elliott is not anticipated today or this weekend. This despite the fact that the league has wrapped up their investigation and we continue to wait to hear what their decision is. You got weekend plans? Big ones?
Maybe some basketball.
Oh, hoops?
Yep.
I'll be there.
I'm going to do flashcards.
Yeah, you should.
Good idea.